Your brain does not just feel sad when your team loses, it treats the loss like an incoming physical attack. A man's fists clench on his own couch. His pulse spikes over 11 strangers moving on a screen. Here's what's actually happening. Scientists finally trace the exact switch that flips inside his skull. You are not a fan. The instant the referee's whistle blows, your brain drafts you onto the roster. No tryout, no uniform fitting, just a whistle, and suddenly you're standing shoulder to shoulder with strangers. Sounds strange? It gets stranger. In 1976, a psychologist named Robert Cialdini sent researchers onto 7 American college campuses. They weren't watching the games. They were watching the parking lots the Monday after. Why the parking lots and not the stadiums? Because the real experiment was already over by kickoff. When the home team won, students showed up in school sweatshirts, team logos on their chests, team colors on their jackets, backpacks with team pins clipped to the straps. Would you dress like that after a loss? When the team lost, the same students showed up in plain clothes. No logos, no colors, nothing linking them to a loss. A coincidence or a pattern? Cialdini called this basking in reflected glory. Psychologists shortened it to BIRGing. But clothing was only the surface. What did the fans actually say out loud? Listen to the words themselves. After a win, a fan says, "We won." After a loss, the same fan says, "They lost." Same event, different word, we, they. One pronoun for victory, a different pronoun for defeat. Notice what just happened there? Your brain is quietly editing your identity in real time, stitching itself to the winners, cutting itself loose from the losers. Psychologists call the second half of that pattern CORFing, cutting off reflected failure. Ever notice yourself doing it? Cialdini didn't stop at sweatshirts. In a second study, researchers phoned the same students at home and asked about Saturday's score. The interviewer sat with a clipboard and a stopwatch, timing every pause, every hesitation before the answer came. Winning fans answered in one breath, "We won." Losing fans paused, shifted the phone to their other ear, then answered with distance, "The team lost." Hear the distance in that? Not we, just the team, like reporting a stranger's misfortune to a stranger. Sound familiar? The same pattern lives online today. A flag emoji added to a profile picture during a winning streak. The same emoji quietly removed the week after an early elimination. Nobody announces the removal. Notice how quiet that edit is? It simply disappears, the same way the sweatshirt disappeared from the parking lot decades earlier. A sweatshirt is just a costume change. A pronoun is just a word choice. An emoji is just a pixel. What if the wiring runs deeper than language, clothing, and pixels combined? This is where it gets strange. In 1994, a researcher named Bernhardt walked into an Atlanta sports bar with a box of cotton swabs. This wasn't a lab with actors. It was a real bar, on a real night, during a real World Cup final. 21 soccer fans sat inside on mismatched bar stools. Just an ordinary night out? Half rooted for Brazil, half rooted for Italy. Brazilian flags draped over half the room. Notice the room already dividing? Italian flags over the other half, a single television bolted above the bar, showing both sides the same picture. Before kickoff, every fan spat into a plastic tube, capped it, and wrote their name on a small sticker. After the final whistle, they spat again into a second tube. Why saliva of all things? Because saliva carries testosterone, and testosterone doesn't lie about a costume. Brazil won. When Bernhardt carried the samples back to his lab and tested them, the Brazilian fans' testosterone had jumped 20%. The Italian fans' testosterone had dropped by roughly the same amount. Real chemistry or just the excitement of a close ordinary match? A Brazilian fan pumped his fist and hugged the stranger next to him, spilling both their drinks. An Italian fan across the room stared down at the floor, arms crossed, saying nothing, his drink untouched. Same room, same night, same broadcast, same score. So why did their bodies disagree? Nobody in that bar threw a punch. Nobody scored a goal. Nobody even stood up from their bar stool. Their hormones moved anyway. So what actually moved? The exact same pattern seen in an actual combatant after an actual fight. Up for the winner, down for the loser. Does the body even know the difference? Your body was already voting on the outcome before your mind finished processing the scoreboard. 20% up, 20% down. Not a metaphor. An actual chemical signature of combat, sealed inside a plastic tube and labeled with a name, with no fist ever thrown. That's the break. The body of a man on a bar stool prepares for war exactly like the body of a man in one. Why would a brain wire something this extreme into a game with a scoreboard and a whistle. Rewind past the sports bar. Rewind past the parking lots. Rewind past 1994 entirely. Rewind to a hunting band on an open plain. Hard to imagine, isn't it? No scoreboards, no stadiums, just 30 or 40 people who depended on each other against the next drought, the next raid, the next lion in the grass. Sound peaceful? Picture the fire at the center of camp. 30 faces lit orange by the flame, all facing the same direction, all listening for danger in the dark beyond the light, a single dog curled near the warmest stones. What did status even mean in a place with no trophies? In that world, status inside the group was not a trophy on a shelf. It was a place near the fire, a share of the meat. A hunter who returned from a losing skirmish limped back to a smaller portion by the fire, fewer eyes meeting his spear left leaning outside the circle of light. A hunter from a winning raid sat closer to the flame, handed the better cut without asking for it, the meat still warm, a child scooting over to make room beside him. Notice who decided that? When your group won a conflict against a rival band, your personal standing rose with it, even if you threw no spear yourself and stayed by the fire the entire time. When your group lost, your standing fell, and a weakened group could mean exile, starvation, or a spear through the chest before the next moon. Why would that math ever change? It hasn't. Your brain never received the memo that the rival band is now 11 strangers in orange jerseys, 4,000 miles away, kicking a ball on a screen bolted to a bar wall. It still runs the same ancient calculation. Their win is your win. Their loss is your loss. For almost all of human history, a group's fate and one person's fate were the exact same fate. That's why testosterone can spike 20% over a stranger's penalty kick. That's why a man alone on his couch can clench his fists like he's bracing for a blow that's actually coming. His brain isn't confused. It's doing precisely what kept his ancestors alive, treating the tribe's fortune as a direct hit to his own body. The remote is already on the armrest. The jersey is already folded on the chair, ready to be pulled over your head the second the anthem starts. A cushion is already dented in the shape of a body that hasn't sat down yet. None of this is decoration. It's a body quietly arming itself for a fight it will never admit it's having. Think about the next match on your calendar, circled in red on a kitchen wall. Somewhere behind your ribs, cortisol and testosterone are already lining up like soldiers at a gate, waiting for a whistle, ready to convince your body that 11 strangers in matching shirts are under physical attack, and so are you. Your palms will sweat before the coin toss even happens. Your jaw will tighten before a single pass is thrown. Your brain still does not just feel sad when your team loses. It treats the loss like an incoming physical attack, and it never stops rehearsing for it.